They're giving all this money away to the war in Ukraine.
That's not nice. You should go to hell.
What do you think of the price increase in the UK? Did the sanctions affect us more than they did in Russia?
Well, the sanctions have affected the UK, there's no doubt about that. Rent prices have gone up, prices on all goods have gone up. And that's problematic for us here. It's difficult, it makes life harder. It made life personally harder for me. I can't say how hard it's affected Russia or not, I don't know. It's very difficult in this day and age to really know truth about someone else's country. So much disinformation.
I think that it's something that we've just got to accept, that it has affected us, but I think within Russia they will be suffering badly and they have there's no reason to.
Increasing the prices and the living prices.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cost of
that's Putin. He hold that key for the gas and petrol, whatever. He hold the key, make people suffering in here. That's not nice. That's not nice. You should go to hell.
I don't know the situation in Russia, but I imagine Putin's protected Russia to some extent. So, without knowing much, I would assume that the UK is worse off than Russia. And yeah, my personal opinion on the price increase is that it sucks. Prices are already so expensive with inflation and just general things going on in the economy, and then you just chuck in a civil war. It just makes things a lot worse. So yeah, not happy.
I can't judge.
No comment.
Can't judge.
Okay.
Don't know.
No, it meant to happen after COVID. You know, it's not really necessarily related to the Russian industry. There's plenty of land in Africa, in Europe. After communism, a lot of Eastern Bloc manufacturers got shut down because of non-profit, or they didn't find enough markets. But now it's opportunity for most of the Eastern European countries to start producing again and make profit. Not necessarily everything needs to come from Russia. It needs to be a Russian relation to the war in Ukraine.
I would probably less than Russia. I'm not an expert, but I think the Russian economy is certainly doing worse. But I would say that saying that the price increases here are because of the war is an excuse that the government likes to use to get out of trouble for the economic problems that they've caused.
I've absolutely no idea.
Well, gas prices or just general cost of living?
Cost of living.
I think the Russians are probably going through a hard time. The general Russian population are also going through a hard time. I don't know if it's affected us more than them. We're living in London, which has got some of the most affluent people in the world, and they don't seem to be suffering from this. It's always the poorest of society who end up suffering the most during this cost of living, any kind of crisis financially, and the rich don't get any poorer.
Hard to say, really. There's so many things at play, including a dreadful Tory government.
Yes,
Why do you think so?
because we've got this cost of living crisis where the gas going up, the electric going up. People can't afford it. They're having to go to food banks, having to keep the heating off if they can't afford it. And they're giving all this money away to the war in Ukraine. And the Russian people are kept in the dark, from what I can understand, about what is actually going on in Russia to Ukraine. They seem to think it's fine. But a lot of them, they have no idea what's going on.
God knows. I don't know. I'm not clever enough to know that stuff. I don't. It's obviously not ideal for Russia, but I think they will weather it. And I think the fact that Putin's just kept going with his special military operation is evidence that the sanctions probably aren't enough. I think he made a deal. He actually had a meeting with India's Prime Minister really recently, and China are taking a neutral stance. So I think he'll still be able to trade with them, and they're obviously two massive countries. So I think economically they will probably weather it, and I'm not sure he really cares. That's the problem with any country that's just sort of oil funded, is you can basically just boost an economy without actually producing any productivity for the people, actually increasing worker productivity. So I think it is hitting them hard, but probably not doing what it needs to.
I don't really know. be honest. Petrol was bad for a while, but I feel like it's mellowed now.
Yeah, I don't know enough about
that,
to be honest.
No comment.
I think in the long term it's going to be quite bad for just like the Russian people, not so much. I mean, Russia will probably still increase their like hard powers or their military because they have probably one of the biggest like hard power systems in the world with all their just like military personnel and their and their tanks and everything. But I think for the Russian people it's definitely going to get a lot worse because with a dictator like that, he's definitely shown he doesn't care about the people. All he cares about is just increasing his military power and his domination across Europe.
Yeah.
Definitely. If anything, I feel like it's gaining. It's like Russia's gaining from this. If anything, we're losing. Life's only getting harder for everyone, and cost of living, that's going to be a problem forever now. They've only just introduced it now, but it's been an issue. So,
More than Russia? Oh. No, I don't think so. I don't think they've affected us more than Russia.
But have you felt impacted by the sanctions?
Oh, yeah.
By the price increase, I mean?
Yeah, but I wouldn't know if that's specifically to do with just Russia or
this started
us coming
with
out,
COVID.
We're coming out of the pandemic as well.
Yeah.
Sort of the increase in just life.
I think it's a worldwide thing. And we just sort of need to look at everything and sort of readjust and rethink things. And yes, of course it has affected us, but we need to rethink. We can't just rely on certain countries.
And and the worst thing is now he doesn't really have like an escape pad. Like he's basically a war criminal now. So no, it's not like he can really go back on this and actually get elected democratically or anything. Like he's gonna just have to keep doing what he's doing. And yeah, what you were saying, like one of the saddest things I think is now all countries are probably going to have to expand their militaries a bit, and personally I'm against like big military spending, so I think it's sad that now just like military budget's probably going to go up.
And also I think it's like a very divisive issue in Russia, like because I have Russian friends and I remember they saying like their grandmas, they're like babushkas, saying like they're still a bit massive fan of Putin and I think it's like a generational gap, right? Like where the older people are very set in their ways and the young people are just so frustrated.
I think it's a bit too much,
Too much in terms of what?
Money-wise. And you're paying twice what something like 50p for like pasta, now it's 100p, 100 pence,
I wouldn't be able to judge on that, but I certainly think the rise in the cost of living has helped us understand how we've got to get away from reliance on oil, and I think the greater rise in the cost of living has been our leaving the European Union.
I think they have affected us, and I think it's difficult for people with prices going up. How much they've affected people in Russia, I don't know.
As in the increase in like oil and stuff like that.
The cost of living crisis, effectively.
It's hard to say. I'm not out in Russia, and it's kind of hard to like, for me at least, from what I've seen, to kind of see any media come out of Russia that's not kind of have a bias of some way. I think oil is never going to be a reliable source of power anyway, and something like this is always inevitable. That's not really answering your question. So no, I don't think so. I think Russia is more affected than we are.
And in your personal experience, you feel affected by it?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think everything's gone up. I feel like it's kind of hard to see a shop now that doesn't go over like £10. So it's just small stuff like that you notice, for sure.
Not more than they're affecting. I don't think that you can compare the two because it's two very different interests. But I do think that it's a big impact on most people, families, etc.
But do you think we're worse off than they are over there in Russia?
I don't think we're fearing life as much as they are.
I don't know enough about that to answer that. I mean, the energy crisis and heating and all that kind of stuff in winter is all that anyone can talk about. But to be fair, I don't know how badly the sanctions have affected Russia going the other way. I have to admit that.
if I think about it really and truly, yes, the war in Ukraine, I won't call it a war, the attack into Ukraine has a direct impact on the world economy, and so I think that in itself was an issue. Also, if you consider the fact that we just came out of COVID, a lot of companies suffered. So there are loads of other factors I think that could play into the reasons why we are at the moment. Not just the Russia, but I think they do play a big factor. Yeah.
We can make our own phosphor, our own chemicals to fertilize the land. And yes, it's a big portion of Ukraine that is conquered and is not producing, but there's other countries that can sustain that. Brazil, for example, United States of America, France, Spain, Egypt, plenty of countries that can sustain the world, and not necessarily that. Yes, it's always been wars around the globe, but after COVID, a lot of manufacturers have shut down, so that's another link to the price increase and inflation. Not necessarily everything has to do with Russia fighting Ukraine.
Yes.